I'm Ray. I work for the state and our retirement agency, PERSI. I've got a couple goals for you today. I'd like to introduce you to pensions, talk a little bit about how PERSI works, and then talk about planning for retirement as an Idaho educator. If you're ready for a nice long, boring death by PowerPoint, sorry to disappoint you. That's no fun for either of us, right? And I can get really excited about the magic of PERSI planning for retirement. So we'll put together a hopefully fun theme for our discussion today. With a certain holiday around the corner, you may have guessed the theme today is magic. Like in the dry, boring version we have for employees, we use the three-legged stool to illustrate the importance of retirement stability, retirement planning, things like that. But for this group, let's think about, what we can put into our magic cauldron. Let's have a little bit more fun today, right? So before we start, quick disclaimer. Basically says, I'm not a financial advisor. What we talk about today is meant to get you thinking about your future. You can make your own decisions later. So if you take a minute to read this, and let's move on. So I want to start with pensions. For those folks that are just starting their career paths, retirement plans and pensions might seem like mysterious and magic. So let's demystify that. Most pensions work by you as an employee and your employer both putting money in an account that's designed to give you a monthly retirement check for the rest of your life when you retire. Unlike a bank account or other savings vehicles, most pensions, like Social Security, it's kind of a pension, right? PERSI, never run out. You get a check each month until you die. That's how they're designed. So, talking about Social Security, according to the Social Security Administration, the average benefit is just over $1,500 a month. That amount was never meant to replace a person's working wage and probably won't be enough alone to provide a stable retirement for most of us. Heck, Social Security, right on their website and their publications, says on average, Social Security will only replace about 40% of an income. It does replace more income for low wage folks and a lot less for higher income people. Some people don't even think Social Security is going to be around by the time they're ready to retire. So, who knows? Maybe we can count on it. Maybe it'll be different. So PERSI is how you can add some, more magic into your magic cauldron to have money for your retirement. By law, all full-time public school teachers in Idaho participate in PERSI. So sorry, substitutes, you don't get to play. Now, unlike Social Security and the potential uncertainty surrounding it, think of PERSI like being protected by a magic protective spell. Idaho statutes protect PERSI, so you don't have to worry about it being used for anything other than taking care of your pension. And the folks that get to make the rules and laws regarding PERSI, they're members in PERSI too, meaning they're not likely going to do anything to hurt it because they depend on it. So PERSI is a pension, right? You and your employer pay in so you can retire with a monthly lifetime benefit later on. With PERSI, your employer pays a significant amount more than you do. They really invest into your future, okay? Now, it looks very similar to how Social Security is deducted on your pay stub. You'll see a line item that shows a dollar amount deducted from your gross wages. In my case, it's under retirement. That amount is equal to 7.16% of my gross wages for that period. Your employer is also going to pay into PERSI, but that is a separate additional amount that they contribute on top of what you pay out of your check. So in order to be fully entitled to a lifetime PERSI benefit, you're going to have to work at least 5 years for an employer in the Idaho system. That's called vesting. That's the first big milestone to reach as you plan for retirement. PERSI is designed to reward people for a long career in public service. And as such, the benefit formula is pretty simple. Unlike a bank account or 401k account, PERSI is a defined benefit. That means your benefit is not dependent upon how much you or your employer paid in. It's based on how much you were making at the peak of your career, how long you worked, and a multiplier that is equal to 2% per year of service. Hasn't changed by our legislature in decades, and would cause a lot of ripple effect if they did ever change it. Now, a typical retiree is going to receive more in benefits than the total they ever paid in. Actually, within about the first 3 to 5 years in retirement, they'll receive what they've paid in plus some. Now, after that, their monthly checks for life are paid out of the money supported by the employer contributions and PERSI's investment returns. So it's not magic, it's just math. Because it provides a monthly paycheck for the rest of your life, PERSI is going to bring that extra leg of stability to our retirement planning cauldron, right? We want to have potentially as big and full cauldron as possible, but we want it to be stable so it doesn't tip over and we lose that magic we put in. Now, PERSI is designed to pay you a benefit, but even if you decide to leave the employer, you're always going to be entitled to all the money that you put in, plus whatever interest it's accrued over time. Keep in mind, you can go from one Idaho school district to another Idaho school district without leaving PERSI. It's called portability. Now, your employer's contributions always stay in the system regardless of what you do, okay? A PERSI member is never entitled to recover the employer contribution specifically. They can never access the employer account. Employer contributions and investment returns stabilize the fund for all roughly 175,000 members in PERSI. That's what makes it possible for retiree benefits to continue indefinitely until death for all retired members. So if you want to get the money your employer paid in, you'd have to become vested and then retire from PERSI to get your monthly benefit. So let's go back and remember when we talked about Social Security, the average benefit's a little over $1,500, right? The average Idaho teacher makes about $4,800 a month while they're teaching. And then when they retire, their average benefit from PERSI is around $2,300 a month. Now, I'm no math wizard, but can you see where I'm going with this? You know, it's not magic, it's simple math. That's going to leave a gap of about $1,000 a month if you just have PERSI and Social Security compared to what you were making before. So something to think about. Nobody's average, right? But the average Idaho teacher makes more on average than the average general PERSI member. So you may get more from PERSI, especially as teachers also tend to have longer careers on average. But it also means you may have more that you want to cover with another leg on that cauldron. So you may need a larger or smaller cauldron than other people, but now you have a foundation to start working with. All right, so serious moment. Like if there was one thing to pay attention to, this is it. If I can help you understand this and you think about it afterwards, then I consider that a win. I really can't stress enough how important this can be for you, okay? I really want to demystify the income needs in retirement and why this should matter when you are young. To figure out what more you need to add to your retirement potion in the cauldron, some things to look at, okay? How much money you're going to need to budget for once you're done working. Things like, is your house paid off yet when you retire? Have you paid off college? You paying for your kids' college? Is your car paid off? How about health insurance? Is that going to be cheap or expensive? If you're retired and have free time, are hobbies cheap or expensive? But this isn't an exhaustive list, right? You may have other things. So figure out where you are now with assets and debt and whatever that gap is you're going to want to close. Put a plan together that factors in all sources of income and expenses in retirement, possibly including budgeting for medical and long-term care expenses, and then go to work closing that gap. All right, so we've covered what a pension is, a little bit about Social Security, what PERSI can do for you. So let's throw PERSI and Social Security in there, dream of yourself for that added stability in retirement, right? So the goal is to get enough money in the pot so you have stability, peace of mind in your golden years of retirement. So what holds up that cauldron and keeps your magic money from spilling out and disappearing? So we've talked about this. 3 legs, and we've covered those 2, PERSI and Social Security. Neither one is designed to even come close to fully replacing the income from your working years. And for some folks, PERSI and Social Security may not be enough, right? So like Social Security, there isn't much to do about your PERSI now, I guess besides working longer, making more money, that can help with your pension. But there is something that you can do and control now, especially early, stabilize your magic cauldron and have enough for your retirement later on. And that's add another leg to your cauldron. So this is going to be a general category that we're going to call supplemental savings. It can be different things. So in addition to what individual employers offer for supplemental savings, PERSI does have a 401k plan available to all members. So if you're focused, creative, you can probably do even more, take advantage of the magic of compounding interest. Maybe stocks, bonds, IRAs, other employer-sponsored supplemental plans like 401ks, state's 457 plan, 403s, whatever the case is. Don't forget, you may have other options like income from rental properties, side jobs, whatever. The magic here is the earlier you start, the longer your money has time to brew and grow and fill your cauldron. So, in case you're curious about how PERSI compares, I've got a bonus slide for you. Now, just a disclaimer, right? This ranking was performed by a third party. It's not an exhaustive looking comparison. It may contain errors or out of information, but it does help illustrate that when stacked against peers, Idaho is recognized by others as one of the top pensions for teachers in the country. And I will provide that link if you would like. Now that's the end of our apologetically dull, boring presentation. Please feel free, if you have any questions, you'd like to clarify anything, let us know. Again, our website, persi.idaho.gov. If you are a PERSI member and you have any questions about your account, help with any resources, online My PERSI, etc., we have an answer center that is here in Boise. So feel free to call us toll-free number 800-451-8228. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Let me get that link for the comparison for you.
Okay. Okay, great. Oh, that was a direct message. Let me just put that in the chat so folks will be able to look at that.
And in case they're curious about Social Security, I have those publications as well. Sent them to you.
Okay, great. Can we go back to that slide where you're comparing the other states?
Yes. So
when we were on a call a few weeks ago with one of the state senators, she was kind of talking about how PERSI is like one of the best systems that's set up by any of the other states. And I just was curious if you could speak to, because we do have some students who are kind of curious about like teaching in other states. And just wondering if you could kind of speak to like what makes PERSI unique in Idaho versus how the pensions work in other states.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with all hundreds of other pensions.
Sure.
I can give you like a generalization.
Sure, yeah.
PERSI is a defined benefit plan where those are becoming rarer.
What does that mean, defined benefit plan?
So defined benefit is a guaranteed monthly income in retirement, irrespective of amount contributed. So it doesn't run out of money. A DC plan, like a 401k, is entirely dependent upon how much you have paid in. And sometimes employers pay into them as well, but there is a finite amount of money in that account at the end. And so you can potentially outlive it, or it's a variable as far as how much you can use depending on what your needs are. Defined benefit is a formula that determines how much you get, and you're going to get that for the rest of your life. So let me give you some averages with PERSI. The average PERSI person is going to be retired for about 20 years. And that's average. Nobody's average, right? But that is the average person. So the amount of money that they pay in is paid back to them early in their retirement. For the average PERSI person, their account's paid to them in about 3 to 5 years on average. So if it were just based on what they paid in, it wouldn't last that long. The defined benefit plan means that they get a monthly income for the rest of their life. We do have folks that are over 100 and still getting their PERSI pension. Now, what makes PERSI different in some other ways? There are some pension plans that base their retirees' pension on market returns. PERSI doesn't do that. That simple formula is just based on your highest average monthly salary. A statutory multiplier just means that it's a multiplier, hasn't changed in a very long time, and as far as I'm aware, there's nobody looking to change it because the benefit's kind of locked in place, right? PERSI's been around for a long time, so it's a very stable, mature system in that regard. And then, of course, your length of service. And it's also your highest average monthly salary. It's not your last or final salary. A lot of pensions base it just on like your last, 3, 4, or 5 years. PERSI's based on your highest. So we talked about portability. PERSI isn't just teaching. It isn't just state work. There are over 800 employers in PERSI. So other states, maybe there's a specific like a state government pension plan, teacher pension plan. There may be a city pension plan versus a state pension plan, things like that. No, everything in PERSI is together. So if you teach in West Ada, and then you go to the Boise School District, or if you move to Idaho Falls and teach there, that follows you because it's all within one system. If maybe you find out teaching's not for you, and you go to work in one of the counties or cities or state agencies, like your benefit's going to follow you. So you're not like starting over again within Idaho. PERSI, I didn't check it this morning because I was at a workshop, but yesterday's investment report, PERSI's over 100% funded. That's one way to compare pensions, is how funded are they. If you look at according to this report, top 3 teacher pensions, PERSI's actually more funded than one of the top 3.
And what does that mean to have something be 100% funded? Like,
okay.
Why would it not be 100% funded? Or yeah, what does that mean?
Short answer, funding means stability and contribution amounts. And all future assumed liabilities, the money's in PERSI to pay for it. So if we assume
you're definitely going to get paid, there's no like this might run out or.
Yeah, this, PERSI's different that we pay for the benefit we eventually receive. We don't have to rely on our children or grandchildren to pay for our benefit when we retire. It's not, kicking the can down the road and not being funded and having to take, billions of taxpayer dollars like some pension systems are doing. You can read about in the news. PERSI has a relatively low contribution rate for both employees and employers because we're funded and it's stable. PERSI's got a fairly conservative rate of return goal. All these things go into, you don't have to pay as much in, your benefits really stable, and you don't have to worry about things changing that often.
And so this little box on the left here, so our overall rank out of 50 states is 7 out of 50. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, tied for 7th, I think is how it.
Okay. And so what is that 76.1%? What does that mean?
So they made up whatever their grading scale is, this Bellwether Education Partners thing, and they graded it on, different criteria. They list some of them here.
Okay. And so what does that mean? Like the short term, medium term, long term? Those are like investments and how they're.
No. So that's if you're a short-term teacher. So, if you only are in the system for very short term, what kind of benefit does it provide?
Okay.
If you're, kind of a middle length career, what does that mean? If you're a long term, what does that mean? And so, you know, I want to point out that nobody got an A, not even the top three. Um, most of them were B or C in their rating scale. So, um,
And so what's the rating for taxpayer?
the cost of the pension system, right? So the burden on the taxpayers.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. I have a couple more questions, but Adriana, do you have? Yeah.
Yeah, if I might have missed this, but when you mentioned that it's calculated on the highest salary, what does that mean? Is it amount that you start getting is based off of the highest amount that you ever earned? Is that what, did I understand that?
So most of us, as we continue working, we make more money. Well, hopefully we make more money, right?
Sure.
But there is portability within PERSI. You may work for a different school or move different school systems, and so, or you may move to different parts of public employment. What this means is it's going to look at your highest average monthly salary, whether that's the end, beginning, or somewhere in the middle, even with a previous employer. Wherever you made the most money at the peak of your career, that average monthly salary is used to determine your retirement benefit. So that's a really good question. It's based
Regardless
on,
of how long you were at that position.
so it's based on your highest 42 consecutive months. So if you were at a position for 5 years, it would take your highest 42 consecutive months, 3.5 years basically, right? So if I work for, let's say Boise school system, and they pay maybe a little bit more than, someplace like Hammond. I don't know as an example. I don't know for sure. I'm just using it as an example. And I never make as much at my future employer as I did at my current employer. Wherever my highest average monthly salary is, that's what's used. It also means that because it's only a 42 consecutive months, when you're really young and starting out in your career, you don't make as much. That's not held against you as you continue your career.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I did have another question. But are there any options within PERSI for an employee to contribute more into the system or to have more money deducted from their paychecks?
Yes. So there's an option for the PERSI 401k choice plan that's completely voluntary. So it's up to you if you're a member in PERSI.
Mhm.
The amount that you pay into the base plan or the defined benefit, the pension, is fixed.
Mhm.
So there's not a way to pay more into that besides, make more money, right?
Okay.
So if you want to have more money for later on, you could use PERSI's 401k choice plan. And so that is pre-tax. You can set up automatic payroll contributions out of that. And that's a way to have more money later on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so when you're moving out of, like, if you're a teacher who, had taught in Idaho for a little while and then was moving out of state, it's just gonna, like, as long as you worked for a full 5 years in Idaho, it would be in your benefit to make sure that you stay long enough to be vested. And then you'll still get a benefit, and then potentially also whatever, if I moved to another state and became a teacher there for 10 years, then I would get that pension as well as whatever I would get from being vested in Idaho as well, correct?
Right. So you do get a choice what to do with your money if you leave your employment in Idaho early before you retire. You can take it with you, right? It's your money, so you can take it with you. Just know that if you take it with you, you're forfeiting your employer's contributions because that's never part of your account specifically. That's paid into the pool of money with all the other employers and all the other assets invested. And that's how PERSI makes money so that it can provide that benefit for people's lifetimes. But you can leave it. If you're vested, then you can leave it and then get your retirement later on. If you return to PERSI employment in the future, which is common, you get to pick up where you left off as far as your career and adding service within the system and building your retirement and things like that. PERSI is Idaho specific. So it doesn't matter what employment you have outside of PERSI in other states, because it doesn't have anything to do with your PERSI, because that is Idaho. But yeah, there are folks that, have careers earlier, later, much later, inside and outside, and have multiple pensions, and that's totally okay.
Cool. And then just, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but I think it should just be stated here as well, that this is only, again, for public schools in Idaho. So if someone's working for a private school, they are not eligible for PERSI benefits, correct?
So it depends. If it's like a charter school, they're included in PERSI.
A public charter school. Yeah, okay.
So, most teachers qualify for PERSI.
And then are there other like specifications about like what kind of a role that you have to have? Like, it's because it's probably not everyone who works at the Boise Public Schools is eligible for PERSI, or I know like Boise State is another example of that. Like, not everyone who works at Boise State is eligible for PERSI benefits. Is there some stipulation around what role they need to have?
Substitutes don't qualify specifically by statute because they are not, full-time permanent kinds of positions. If there was a seasonal position at a school district, not that I've heard of it, but seasonal employees, typically you find seasonal employees, not to like go off on a tangent, but just explain, like parks, they're not open and mowing lawns all year long, right? They only need them for a very specific kind of period. So if there was, for whatever reason, a seasonal position at a school district, then that position may not qualify. But for the most part, regular positions at school districts qualify for PERSI.
Okay, so
whether it's
counselors and administrators, principals, all that, they all are in PERSI. Okay.
Yeah, the administrators definitely. Something to keep in mind in case folks ever want to consider it in the future. Elected appointed officials also participate in PERSI. So if you have an administrative background and you get into the elected or appointed position to the school, that would also participate in PERSI. So just something to keep in mind.
Gotcha.
It's commonly asked. You don't lose your PERSI because all of a sudden you become superintendent or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. And then my other question was just around, with the calculation, it's the highest 42-month consecutive average times the months of service times the multiplier. And how does that multiplier get decided?
It's a 2% multiplier. It's meant to be for each year you get 2% of your potential full benefit, right?
Okay.
So as you continue working, it ensures that you get a larger and larger benefit.
Okay. And these are 12-month, like they get them all the time. It's not like they wouldn't get them in the summer the way that they potentially would for their school paycheck. They're just getting it every other
Oh,
month.
yeah. Your PERSI retirement is the first of every month for the
Okay.
rest of your life. I will say that in my experience, a lot of school districts do pay monthly, even during the summer months. So you have a 12-month contract. So even if you're not physically in school during the summer, you're still getting a paycheck.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and for those folks that are considering, you mentioned universities. Universities do have a different retirement program for like their professors.
Okay.
Right. So that is, just something to keep in mind. If you move from, teaching in public schools to, colleges, they may have a different retirement program.
Okay.
Now I don't know that much about it, right? Because it's not PERSI, so I can't speak to it, but it's just something to keep in mind, as folks look at developing their career.
Sure. Okay. Great. Well, I think that was all of my questions. Do you have any other questions, Adriana?
Nope, not at this time. I think went over kind of the general content that we had in mind. So thank you.
If
Yeah,
there are questions, please, Melissa or Adriana, please feel free to reach out. Let me know. Be happy to answer questions, provide information. If folks are considering, teaching in Idaho, I think it's pretty awesome. No, I can't speak for other states. PERSI provides a relatively decent benefit and stability you don't find in other places. Like I'm not going to call out specific states, but you can go look online at how well my pension is funded for different states, and like how far does a dollar go in my state, and you'll see when you start looking into it why PERSI, depending on who you ask and who did the comparison, which data they used, is in the top 10, top 5 places to retire from.
yeah, yeah, great. I think this is a ton of good information. And is it okay if I share your email address if folks have questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just gonna put that in the chat, and then I'll also just put the link to the brochures so that students can look that up
Thank you.
as well. So yeah, and then we've got lots of good links for folks to kind of explore what's available to them, and your information if they have any questions. So thank you so much for your time today. This is really helpful for students, I think, who, I know when I became a teacher, I was like, oh, I think pensions have to do with retirement, but that was kind of the extent of what I understood about them. So it's good to break it down and sort of understand.
I wish, and I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but a long time ago, somebody like y'all had provided this kind of information when I was, like I said, a while ago. I won't go how far, but I wish I'd known then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think similarly, I've worked in a couple of different states in public schools and actually was never vested. So while I've had 5 years, I'm not vested in any of these pensions that I've, been, qualified for. But yeah, I think that would be good information. Just like stick it out a couple more years just to be vested in this before you kind of explore their options. So yeah, all good information, and we definitely appreciate you kind of breaking that down for us. So
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, like, so really kind of frank discussion. Like I interact with a lot of retirees, and I've never met one who has yet said, I'm so sorry I put extra money away from my retirement. Like, oh darn, I have money to do the things that I want to do and afford a lifestyle. Now, I have met, and I'm sure you probably can think of a couple folks that didn't have the same kind of planning and didn't save. They are, struggling on a fixed income. They can't go to the doctor because they can't afford it. They don't take vacations. They don't go out and do things. They're struggling to keep an old car running, living on food stamps, that kind of thing. Like, especially when you're younger, you can make some choices to really change that outcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. We
Thank you all
appreciate
so
it,
much.
and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. You all as well. And take care.
Okay, you too. Thanks. Bye.